Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 271, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms, they apply. I am Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Not the Bruins are not so much. Not so much for the Bruins. No, not so much. Those first place predictions that we made at the beginning of the year, 8 games in, are not looking too hot. But you know what? There's time. There's a lot of time. There's time left. It can happen. I'm not right. That's why, like, everyone, someone replied to me on Twitter on Monday or Tuesday night and said, "Man, they're not a playoff team." And they replied with like, "No, they just don't look like a playoff team right now." But I was like, I need to respond to this, set the record straight. Like, this should be a playoff team. Still holding out hope that our predictions turn out correct. Bruins lose to Nashville on Tuesday night 4-0 during the Frozen Frenzy. I watched a little bit of it. I know you were at the Celtics banner raising ceremony. That was a little bit more positive.
Shout out to the NHL for being like, what better day to do it on a random fucking Tuesday in the middle of the start of the other winter sport that whoops your ass every single time. Like, let's have it on the same day. You have Celtics and then Lakers later on the same day. Good job.
Horrendous. Yeah, I mean, most NHL thing ever to have that the same night as the NBA. And of course, you know, instead of promoting the Frozen Frenzy, ESPN spends all of their time on the 2 NBA games and previewing the NBA season across almost all of their networking. So, yeah, I don't know why that was the Tuesday. I know it must be difficult to find 16 arenas that can do that, but like, you can't. There's no other times you could do that, like a Thursday, a Saturday. Like, there's so many better times for that, and you pick NBA's
the start of the NBA
night.
season. Yes. Going up against like 5 straight hours of Charles Barkley and the guys at City Hall Plaza. I was waiting for Barkley I was waiting for Barkley to go down the cop slide. I thought they were going to do that as part of the thing. Like, talk about a missed opportunity. I know there's like 50 people who I think tweeted out that joke, so I'll give full credit to them. But like, just imagine, like, what a missed opportunity there.
Incredible missed opportunity. I'm going to pour some cold water on that though. I think they've like they've slowed.
They've greased it. I hope they don't grease it. They grease it. They'd be they'd be flying into like the friggin' bell in hand. They'd be like across. They'd be flying.
They'd be in the Dubliner
Congress
before you knew it. Yeah,
I know.
Like it right in. No, and I only know that it's like this
the easiest way
experience.
It's the easiest way to get to the North End. You're like late. You got a reservation over at like Brico or Strega. Just go down the cop slide. You'll fly through Congress Street.
Yep, no traffic.
It's like the hyperlink that Musk was trying to like pitch like a few years ago. That's the actual hyperlink, is people going down the greased up cop slide.
The cop slide with grease on it. It actually is. It's hard to go down, and I don't know if it's just because like I'm an adult, but I've tried to go down it multiple times when I'm in the area
because the cop wasn't right.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I forgot about that. He has his utility belt on and everything.
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
never know. Makes you go faster. But I have to like bring myself down it. So it's not. I think Charles would get like stuck, and so maybe anything Charles does is perfect. So
it's true. Yes,
I'm all for it. Anyway, Bruins lose 4-0 to Nashville on Tuesday night. And it's just more of the same. And you saw it against Utah on Saturday. You've seen it at different times at the beginning of the year or throughout the start of the year with Florida. And just sort of just no offense. Just an inability to get anything going. And they had some chances, but like Nashville also hit a number of posts. Swayman made some huge saves. So like, the Bruins had a couple chances. Marchand on the doorstep a few times, but it just like uninspiring effort with a lot of the same themes popping up.
Yeah, I think uninspiring is the right word, right? I watched a replay of it earlier today, and I think that was the main thing, was the urgency wasn't there. Like,
no reason to watch the full game.
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of it. But no, I mean, you look at Nashville going into it, 0-5, like an urgent team that needs to get its shit in order. Like, you did not see that from the Bruins in this one. I mean, it's not good when you're already like, you're having being talked about with how tough sledding it's been for the Bruins out of the gate. You need to respond. You got a desperate Nashville team, a good test on the road. How do you respond? And what is like Montgomery preached, right, is like not taking penalties. And Pastrnak takes a penalty 13 seconds into the game. You finish with 6 penalties. Yeah, you take 6 penalties. You have a high stick against McAvoy. You kill it, and then give up a goal 4 seconds later, right? It's just it's frustrating because you're falling into the same errors, right? In terms of the penalties, stuff like that. But then you're not seeing the urgency. You're not seeing these guys generate quality looks. You're not seeing players get into inside ice, and nothing's changed from, you look at like those first few losses against Florida. All right, that's a really good team. You got the baggage of what Florida, the mind games, all those things, right? And I would write those ones off, right, as almost their own separate entity as to how good Florida
their
is.
Own problems.
Yeah, that is its own. That's the final boss, right? Like, that's when you start a video game and they make you play like the big bad guy early on. He just like smokes you really early on. That's what Florida was. And then you hopefully you build your game back up and you play him at the end and you kick their ass. That's what the Bruins hope the storyline is.
I just watched The Karate Kid. That's sort of like what the whole premise of the movie is.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's like, you fight the bad guy at the start of the Pokemon game and you lose. And then you're like, all right, well, here you go. Take Charmander and go out into the woods. And then like the butterfly kicks your ass too. That's like what the Bruins are doing right now. They're getting smoked by like Eevee. These like little like that's like essentially what's going on, and they're not doing anything to correct it. You can't have Eevee kick your ass, and that's pretty much
Squirtle is
exactly exactly. So, and it's the same things, right? It's again, you can look at the roster construction, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the penalty issues, but at the end of the day, it comes down to urgency at this point. Like, you have what you have, and you're good enough to win some of these games, or at least be a lot more competitive than what it's been. You look at the results the last couple of games, look at the underlying numbers, which are dour, like in terms of like just
I saw Instagram graphics citing Scott's statistics. Like, Instagram was picking up how bad those statistics were.
And again, like the numbers, right? The Bruins are 18th in goals scored. They're and a lot of that is being lifted up by their 9th in shooting percentage. You got the 4th line. We all talked about them, but then you look at 5-on-5 play. They're 29th in shot attempts, 27th in shots on goal, 27th in scoring chances, 29th in high danger chances. So they're not getting pucks on net. And we talked about this thing on Bruins Beat. They're not generating quality chances. They're not doing the quality over quantity outlook. Like, nothing's working right now. And again, we can look at what they can do lineup-wise to maybe get more offense out of it, but it also comes down to urgency. And for the first 2 periods of that game on Tuesday, didn't see any of it. Did not seem like a team that is feeling the pressure of saying we need to get our shit in order, because that's I think how a lot of Bruins fans are feeling right now. Like, again, we're not playing the violins on the Titanic yet, Evan, right? But like, we're seeing trends that good teams right the ship. That is a Titanic joke, I guess. But
nailed it. There you go.
But good teams
wrap it around. I like it.
Yes, good teams identify these things and they correct them. It takes a couple of games. You fight through it. Right now, you're not seeing a lot from just the usual suspects to make you think, all right, they're going to right the ship, going into Thursday's game against Dallas. Things need to change. And you can look at the lineup, what have you, but it comes down to the players out there need to ramp up the intensity and get this thing rolling. Because right now, whole lot of nothing. It's kind of what you view the Bruins right now. It's a whole lot of nothing. A lot of guys further down the lineup that are carrying or doing almost all of the heavy lifting right now. You're not going to win with that formula.
100%. And I look at, again, teams go through ebbs and flows in a season. The last 2 years, the Bruins have started out so hot. I think people have gotten very accustomed to that. And so when they don't, people start to panic. And I get that. And you are just 7 or 8 games into the year. Things can happen. Things change. A lot of teams, you overcome this adversity and you power your way through the rest of the year. And the last 2 teams, especially that 22-23 team, didn't face much adversity. So they didn't know what to do when it happened to them in the playoffs. So yeah, it's good to have these experiences. To me, what really stands out from the last bunch of days is, so they go into Utah on Saturday after a really nice win against Colorado on Wednesday. Lay an egg against Utah on Saturday, lose in overtime. Montgomery screams at Marchand on the bench, like screams at him. There's cameras like that. People are seeing that. They know that they're being seen. They know that's going to get played. They have a really tough practice on Sunday. Montgomery talked about it. We talked about that on Bruins Beat. And then they go out and lose 4-0 to Nashville on Tuesday with a lot of this, again, penalties, no offense. We'll get to these lineup changes that didn't come close to working. Are we getting close on the Jim Montgomery thing? Because again, like that's where and I'm not saying they should fire him. We're not there yet. But I think it's very interesting that with him being a lame duck head coach, they are not producing enough. They are not responding to anything.
The message isn't getting through.
The message isn't getting through. And that's the first tell. Because, I want coaches to stay around a while. I believe coaches deserve a legitimate shot more than 2 or 3 years. It takes time. But if the room turns you out and the message is stale, which over the last 5 days it has been, is that a sign that we're coming near the end? And then you look at these lineup changes. Max Jones with Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick. Zacha down on the third line with Morgan Geekie and Matt Poitras. And bolstering that top line with Marchand next to Lindholm and Pasternak. Like, are we there yet? I don't know. I don't think we're very far off because, again, like just the message isn't getting through.
Yeah, I think that's the concerning thing, right? And it's almost like with there's smoke, there's fire. So yeah, are we calling the fire department yet? No, but you smell a little something, right? And just something just feels off.
Gas.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was Nesson mentioned it in the post game that they were like, something kind of just feels off. And that's kind of your first, I think, inkling as if maybe something else deep, that's rooted more into this, right? And I mean, not rooted into it, like there's some very dour thing going on here, but if it comes down to what the messaging is and it's not getting across, as you said, when you look at the optics of your coach yelling at your captain, give him a push, right? Like, again, with cameras in full sight, that's going to be out there. Then you have, as you said, a very vocal practice the next day. You're taking the team to task. You're shuffling lines as if it's a playoff series where your 5-on-5 offense goes cold, right? We're not, we're straight in October. Like, this feels like a very team where the urgency is being preached, but the players aren't getting it yet. Now, is that just the waiting for the cohesion to settle in, or is there something more to that where it involves the messaging? And what did we hear for the whole thing of the reason why the Bruins moved on from Cassidy? Messaging. How the message is being presented, how it was being relayed, how it was coming across to the players. Is that something that is playing into it now? We'll see. We'll see how they respond. Like, if they lay another egg on this homestand, and it doesn't help that they've got a pretty tough, you're playing Dallas, you're playing Toronto, all these things, but if it's another 4-0 loss, and then you get, Saturday night game at the Garden against a Toronto team you don't like, that also is kind of playing up and down, and they smoke you too. Like, what's the come to Jesus moment here? If you've already kind of been ramping up this urgency. So am I hitting the siren yet? No, but you're seeing the breadcrumbs, right? You're seeing the things that when you look at, it's the same thing with the Patriots are Gerard Mayo, and everyone's now like, oh, you're gonna fire the guy? Like, no, I think you're getting ahead of things, but you're seeing characteristics or things that you've seen in the past with other coaches where things have either gone awry or relationships between coaches and players have soured, and you're seeing the correlations, right? And I think when it comes to Montgomery and the urgency that's being preached and the fact that it hasn't translated on the ice, that's very concerning.
I agree. I want to talk a little bit more about this, but first, quick words from our friends over at Prize Picks.
Fall is finally here, and you know what that means. Football season is back.
And there's so many ways for you to get in on the action and win up to 100 times your cash on Prize Picks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level on the gridiron, ice, court, and much more. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Prize Picks is also the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks makes sure that your picks are still live. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in Prize Picks, especially during football season. This week, I'm picking Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. It's really that easy. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I think another interesting thing with Montgomery and this whole sort of topic, clearly he feels some pressure. Not signed yet. I know he says, I'm focused on the team and this and that. And of course he's not gonna come out and be like, I'd really like a contract extension. This blows. He's not gonna say that. But the reality is, he's not an internal guy. They went out and got him. So it's not like he came through their system. And they have Joe Sacco on the bench, who was a former NHL head coach. And they have Jay Leach, who they just brought in, who was who's been a widely known head coaching candidate for a while. So you have that, you have guys internally that can take your job. And then on top of that, you're not extended past this year yet. And, I know Sweeney says they want to bring him back. And again, we don't know what the extent of the negotiations are. No agent has come out and said, maybe Jim Montgomery will go on that Shut Up Mark podcast and talk about that stuff. Maybe he wants to set the market for head coaches. That would be nice. We don't know anything about the extension talks and negotiations. So we don't know where they are. And all we can go off of is what's out there. And what's out there is he's not signed yet for next year. So I think he does feel pressure. And I do think, if we get 2 weeks from now and they're hovering around 500, a little under it, these problems continue, is he going to be here? I don't know. I mean, you have the guys in house if you wanted to make that move. So I don't I think it's very possible.
Yeah. And again, you look at the urgency, not just from Montgomery, which makes plenty of sense, as we said, of how they're already shuffling the lines to this extent where it feels like we're in, middle of May and we're checking out the lines before game 3 of a series. And we're like, oh, wow, they're putting this in a blender. They're trying to get things rolling. We are very early on in this year and we're still seeing these kind of changes. But the urgency isn't also just coming from Montgomery and his contract and how that plays into things. Like Cam Neely and Don Sweeney both set very high expectations during the season opening press conference. Cam Neely fully expects this team is better equipped for the playoffs. And so far, they're not playing the team that's going to be in the playoffs. And again, I think that is probably an alarmist way to look at things, but they have not offered much in terms of encouraging signs that this is a team that's going to be a tough out, especially offensively. And I think when you add in the expectations of this team, the fact they've committed all this money in the offseason, and things just look so disjointed, I think is maybe the best way to put it right now, right? You're not seeing promising signs up and down the depth chart other than that fourth line, which you can't expect them to keep on doing that. So yeah, when you look at, I think the name of the game early on this year, and maybe it's just not fair when you have so many moving pieces, is urgency. And whether it's what's being preached from up top with the front office, from what's being preached by Jim Montgomery, and what he's mentioned, how I think visibly frustrated he's been, the line changes, and then the lack of urgency from I think a lot of guys on the ice. pretty concerning and leads to a thing where, again, as you said, if the results are really middling through the next couple of weeks, it's going to come to a head because you committed all this money. There's only so much you can do with this lineup. What's usually in the NHL the move you make when you have to kind of either hit the reset or give everyone a kick in the ass? Usually involves the coach. So.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and again, I mean, you look at these lines, and by the way, like, you know, is it Jim Montgomery's fault that Trent Frederick has done virtually nothing? Is it Jim Montgomery's fault that Morgan Geekie has done virtually nothing? Is it Jim Montgomery's fault that Justin Brazeau, who has missed games, who's been scratched for sure, like, is it his fault? You know, Max Jones gets elevated to Coyle and Frederick and takes 2 more penalties on Tuesday night. I think Nashville scored on at least one of them.
Yeah.
And so again, like, you have these guys, and I think sort of, you know, when we go back to our own predictions, Frederick and Geekie are in contract years. You would think that, you know, and by the way, there's a lot of time left. I want to, like, you know, it's 8 games in, whatever. But like, through those 8 games, there's not much to show for those guys. And so, you know, again, they're not going anywhere. They're not getting dealt, you know? So as you said, the move that you would make in 2 weeks, if things continue like this, it's the head coach. It's the head coach. And like, for better or worse, for right or wrong, that is what teams do. I mean, again, the last time the Bruins fired a head coach midseason was Claude in 2017. And you're right. I mean, they have high hope.
During the Patriots. If they're going to do it, they wouldn't do it during the, I guess it wouldn't match up with the game being played, but during the Celtics ring ceremony.
The banner raising ceremony.
Yeah.
That'd be great. During Frozen Frenzy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I don't think it's crazy to think that if they continue like this and through the next 2 weeks that he's gone. I don't. And I'm not saying that they should. Like, I think coaches should have a longer leash. I think you need to have time with a team and an organization. But again, if they've tuned him out, if the messaging isn't getting through, then like, you can't just keep trotting him out there. You can't do that. This team needs a kick in the ass, and he's given them multiple kicks in the ass over the last week, and nothing has changed.
You need to bring in Red Foreman from that 70s show.
That's right. Yeah. You could. You got to go scorched earth. So I don't know. I mean, I like, you know, I mean, I look at the lines from Tuesday, and it's like, you know, and I also wonder if he's laying the groundwork where it's like, you know, hey, Max Jones is my second line left wing. Hey, like, look at my middle 6. They're not doing anything. And when this middle 6 doesn't do anything, Connor, like, it looks bad because, like, it looks bad on paper too. And so I wonder if there's laying the framework for that. I want to get to that a little bit more. First, a quick word from our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like watching an NBA or NHL game live. The energy in the building, the sounds on the ice or the court, the memories you make with family, friends, and other fans. It's unmatched. And the coolest part is when strangers sitting around you become your best friends. You can make these memories with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. When I use Game Time, I also love the flash deals, which help me get discounted prices on really good seats. Plus, who doesn't love seat views, which give a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy? So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, back to the show. So I mentioned kind of laying the groundwork for, you know, and by what I mean by that is sort of like, you know, so actually Ty Anderson and I were walking back from like Bruins game recently. I forget. I think it was the one against Florida on the Monday. Holiday. Yeah, Monday. And we were kind of saying how, you know, it's interesting how like he's switching the lines up so much, and you wonder if he is laying the groundwork for if and when he did get fired. It's like, hey, like, how am I supposed to win with Max Jones as my left wing at the second line? And I do think that I think the main goal of these changing up the lines is trying to get scoring going, trying to find trios that work. But I do think it is interesting that it's already happening so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, even you look at like the first line of getting Marchand going, right, where you're kind of bringing back the discounted version of the perfection line, right, with putting Marchand in that spot with Lindholm and Pastrnak, right? Like that feels like a move that's, you know, desperately trying to get your captain rolling there. And again, it didn't lead to production on the ice on Tuesday, but yeah, you look at like Max Jones and where he fits into that equation. You look at like a guy like Matt Poitras and who he is with, and the fact that you've got guys like Geeky who aren't producing, and Frederick, and guys that were key cogs last year. And then like you're just looking at, again, going back to how disjointed it is, like you're taking all these penalties, and like Pasternak's whistle thrown as well. But the more penalties you take, the less 5-on-5 time you have to have Pastrnak out there. And like you look at early on last year, when the Bruins got up to such a hot start, a lot of it was goaltending was really good out of the gate and defense really good out of the gate. And then it was how it's been the last couple of years, leading a lot on Pastrnak to lead the way early on. It always feels like whenever the Bruins started hot the last couple of years, it also would be like Pastrnak with 7 goals in 9 games, or, you know, he had his usual kind of scorching hot start. Then you'd have like Van Riemsdyk was strong out of the gate. Like you had 1 or 2 guys in the middle 6 that were also carrying the weight and landing punches, and that was doing just enough for you to get on a roll here, win some games. And you're just getting nothing out of the group so far. So yeah, like it comes down to the guys on the roster, and we can look at like lineup changes, what have you. But there's more guys that are going to be here from now until April, barring a unforeseen fire sale, that you need them to right the ship and get rolling here. Because you can make a move here or there, you can call up a guy, you can try to sign a player, try to trade for someone, but it's not going to plug in all these holes. You need guys like Frederick, Geeky, Coyle, Marchand to step up. And so right now you just haven't seen it yet.
No, you haven't. And Marchand's in that group. It's funny, like when I said preseason, like Marchand, you're going to see a little bit of a step back.
Feel like Connacht the Great, huh?
Yeah, I feel my crystal ball.
Yes.
And I again, like he's still valuable. He had a lot of score. He had some good scoring chances on Tuesday night. I'm not saying he didn't, but I think people have to understand that he's 36, double hip surgery 2 summers ago. Like, yeah, he's going to slow down a little bit. Like, you're not going to get the same 90 to 100 point guy. You just aren't. And we've seen a little bit of a slowdown the last 2 years. But you still need more. You need more from him. And you need, like, you nailed it with, like, you need more from Geeky and Frederick and Coyle. You need production from those guys, and you aren't getting anything close to it. So again, like if Montgomery does get canned, it's like, well, look at Charlie Coyle with, I'm assuming at that point, it'd be like 2 points in 11 games, or like Frederick or Geeky or things like that. And then you also, penalties too. Like the undisciplined play is horrendous. And that's the other part of it, where it's just like, as you said, you need 5-on-5 time. You can't just be killing penalties all the time. Pastrnak isn't a penalty killer, so that takes him off the ice for quite a bit. And it completely fucks with your momentum. Completely. Yeah. So those have been 2 things that have just kind of continued on. In terms of getting offense going, obviously everyone now is looking towards what can they do in-house to plug in a good score. I still think Poitras next to Marchand and Coyle would be interesting if they wanted to bring Marchand back down. But now you also have to look like Tyler Johnson, Fabian Lysell. Where are you on this?
Yeah, I think you have to explore all options, and I I do agree that I think Poitras should be in a featured role and see if that playmaking can unlock more out of other guys, especially in terms of getting him to shoot the puck more. But yeah, would not be surprised the next couple of days, whether it's waiving a guy like Tufte or Jones to create the cap space to bring up to sign Tyler Johnson, bring up a guy like Lysell. And at this point, you got to leave no stone unturned. And also, listen, a guy like Tyler Johnson who looked pretty solid during the preseason, you look at Lysell and his skill, that will help. But also, it's still going to rely on these other guys that are still up here to shoulder that burden as well, right? You can't expect 34-year-old Tyler Johnson to be your savior. You can't expect all of a sudden Lysell, who's been up and down with what you've seen so far, that you sent them packing back to Providence 10 days into camp, to now be entrusted to score 25 goals, right? Like, you need other guys to step up. I just hope that if you're the Bruins and you're especially with a guy like Lysell, and if they make that call, whether it's now, whether it's a week from now, like, if you're going to give guys like Max Jones and Tufte a shot here, and you're going to stick with them when they're committing offensive zone penalties, if Lysell is rusty in the D zone or has a lapse out there, does plenty of other things. Look at like Poitras getting out-muscled with that puck in that game against the Panthers, leads to a shorthanded goal by Reinhart. You better stick with the guy, because I'll take more of him getting through those growing pains, contributing in the offensive zone, and rolling with those punches than a guy like Tufte or Jones committing nonstop offensive zone penalties. Like, I think you gotta, give some leeway to some of these players, especially the offensively gifted guys. And that's not usually the Bruins' MO, but look what you got. You're not having anyone score right now. Some drastic measures or tweaks to how you approach things, I think, need to be taken right now.
They do. And I think that's the thing, is like, they're trying to play it safe with guys like Tufte and Jones, and it's not working. They're actually doing the worst thing they could do, which is take offensive zone penalties. It's not like they're tripping guys, going past them in the neutral zone. They're tripping guys on the forecheck. I mean, that is the worst thing you can do. You take an offensive zone penalty, typically you get benched, and they're doing it with regularity, and they're not producing a thing. So to me, like, I'm with you. Like, swing for the fences here. Lysell, like Johnson, I'm for either. And I think Poitra's also a great in-house solution, moving him up in the lineup if you don't want to waive someone. I think that's a legitimate option. I think that empowers him. I think that could also kind of unlock Marchand if you're going to put Poitras on that line with Marchand and Coyle, if Montgomery decides to go back to that. So, yeah, not the most positive episode in the world. It's not great, but that's where we're at on Wednesday night. Never know how things change, but got Dallas on Thursday. Yeah.
Something's got to give.
So they need, again, like against Dallas and or Toronto, you need a phenomenal 60-minute effort. Like, you need to put the pounding on them if you want to reverse this unfortunate course. Anyways, Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, we have you covered every step of the way this season over at the Globe and Boston.com, whether it's recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. You can read all of it over at Boston.com and the Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.